The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Court officer is now instructed to call in witness TCW 480 into the courtroom. Good morning, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Response. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, and everyone in this courtroom. I am Nong Supang. The President. Thank you, Mr. Nong Supang. Apart from this name, do you also use another name? Response. My original name was Nong Seng Jim. I have no alias. The President. What is your current name, the official name used every day? Response. I am now Nong Supang. Question. Mr. Nong Supang, can you tell the chamber your date of birth or how old are you now? Response. I was born on January the 2nd, 1952. I am now 60 years old. The President. Thank you. Where do you live? Response. I now live in Dai Krahom village, Ta Sain commune, Kom Rieng district, Battambang province. The President. Thank you. What do you do for a living? Response. Currently, I am a retired school teacher. Question. What is your father's name? Response. My father is Nong Chum. Question. What about your mother? Response. She is on tak. Question: what is your wife's name? Response: she is Nyak Ham. The President: thank you. How many children do you have? Response: we have 3 children. Question: Mr. Nong Supang, according to the report by the greffiers of the trial chamber, you have no relationship or connection with the individuals, for example, the civil parties who have been admitted at this court, and you are no related to any of the accused persons. Is that correct? Response: yes, it is. The President: according to the same report, you already took an oath yesterday. Is that true? Response: yes, it is. The President: thank you. The Chamber would like to proceed to apprise you of your rights before this Chamber. As a witness, Mr. Nong Supang, you can reject to respond to any questions or make any statements that are self-incriminating. You shall enjoy the right against self-incrimination of witness. As a witness, you are to give the testimony based on the truth, nothing but the truth. And you shall respond to all questions put by the judges of the bench and parties who are posing questions. And at the same time, you can refrain from responding to any questions in which your statement will be self-incriminating. And your testimony must again be based on what you saw, witnessed, or experienced. Do you understand your rights and obligation as a witness? Response: yes, I do, Mr. President. I thank you very much. The President: Mr. Nong Supang, have you ever given interview to investigators of the co-investigating judges office before? If so, how many interviews have you given, and where were the interviews taken? Response: investigators came to me on 2 occasions. First, it was in the Hun San O An Luok Primary School in 2009. Question: before you appear before the Chamber, had you have any opportunity to read the record of the interviews you once gave before the investigators at O An Luok in 2009 to refresh your memory? Response: yes, I had read the interviews again. The President: according to your best recollection and memory, do you feel that the record of the interviews were consistent with the accounts you gave before the investigators back then? Response. Yes, Mr. President, the documents are consistent with the interviews I gave. The President, thank you. The co-prosecution is now informed that you will be given the floor to put questions to this witness before other parties. You may now proceed. Mr. Wayne Hort. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, and good morning, everyone in this courtroom. And very good morning to you, Mr. Nong So Pang. I am from the Office of the Co-Prosecutors. I have a few questions to put to you. However, before I put the questions, I would like to ask that you ask me questions if you feel the questions are not precisely put or there is some uncertainty or unclarity in the questions, and I'm pleased to clarify for you. You already stated that you have read the documents concerning the interviews you gave to the investigators when they conducted the interviews. Now I would like to refer to document in Khmer 00328T 23 24 0033 4044 in English and French 00411693. Document E3/64. You said that in 1963, Mr. Hung, the chief of the sector, appointed you to work at B17. My question is whether you know the full name of the person by the name Hung, and how did you know this person, and did you ever meet him at a later date? Response. In 1973, Mr. Hung assigned me to work at B17. I do not know the full name of this person. He was the secretary of the sector in Prairie here. He was known as Hung, and I never know whether he had full name. Question. I think I will be putting the same question. How did you know him? Response. Before he recruited me to work at B17, he conducted some political training sessions to indoctrinate us politically, so that before we worked at the center, we could be of well-disciplined. And in general, we were trained to perform in line of the party's policy. so that we could be self-disciplined, we could have good morality before we could be assigned to work for the center. Question. Had you ever met Hung again, or do you know where he lives now? Response. No, I'm afraid not. I have never been in contact with this person, nor had I ever met him again. Question. Can you tell us what was the purpose of B17 and where is it located and who was the chairman of the place? Response. At B17 was a tempering place where vegetables were grown, a place of production to support Angkar. It was also a place where people could be sent to be on training before they could be moved to the center to work there. People's stance would be tested when working at B17, and Mr. Dim was the one who was in charge of B17. Mr. Dim has passed away. Question. My apologies, I need to repeat this. Where is B17 located? Response. I do not know this geographical location, but I recall that it was located near Batnu village. But I don't know in which district it was located, although I know for sure that it was located in Kampong Cham province. Question. What did you exactly do at B17 at that time? Response. At B17, I worked as a vegetable grower or banana trees or sugarcane trees grower. I did not do any other things than this. Question. Do you still recall the year when you attended the Telegram training sessions? Response. It was in mid-1973 when I attended the sessions. It was when I worked at B17. It was half a year after I had been working at B17, rather 17, before I attended the training on Telegram. Question. Who assigned you to attend the Telegram training sessions? Response. I do not know, I do not remember the person who assigned me, but I remember that on one occasion I was taken by a motorcycle and took or taken to the jungle. Question. I would like now to go straight to your actual activities. So who taught you the Telegram techniques, and how many people attended the sessions, and how long each session lasts, and what were the topics being discussed in the trainings? Response. People who taught me to translate the telegrams was by the name Pon, and other people who attended the sessions were Te and other individuals whom I don't remember now. And during that time, I learned to translate the telegrams on the job. Not long after the training, I could be very skillful in my work. Question. I may seek some clarification on how many people attended the Telegram training sessions, and how long the sessions last, and what was the purpose of such training. Response. At first, I was there all by myself. I was not joined by any other participants in the training. And the training was meant to translate and receive secret telegrams sent to me for translation. And I, after translating the telegrams, had to send them to Angkor. Question. I would like to read your statement before the investigators under the ERN 0032 8024 in Khmer, and English ERN is 0033 4044. French ERN is 0041 1694. At that time, you stated that Pon was the group leader who taught me, and that there were 4 to 5 people in my Telegram section. However, you said that you attended the training session alone. Can you clarify, please, on this? Response. Well, that statement is true, but you know, at the beginning, I was the only trainee who attended the session, because the other people already were trained before or were skillful enough to understand this without further trainings. Question. I thank you very much for your clarification. I would like now to move on to the actual practice. Could you tell us how you performed this duty and how communication took place? Response. When I received telegrams in secret coding, I then translated them in accordance with the secret documents, the content of which would be submitted to Mr. Pon, who at the same time sent or managed to have them sent to Angkar. Actually, there were telegrams that were sent to me from the zones or the bases or the battlefields. These messages were sent through radio communication or through telegrams. Then the messenger would be assigned from Mr. Pon to have these documents or messages sent to us before they would be sent back to the targeted areas. This is about the incoming messages. When the messages were to be sent out, it applies the same rule. Pon would receive the messages in telegram, in normal telegram texts. Then he would ask people to send to each respective section to handle them so that they could be translated into the secret telegram coding. After such translation, we then would send the coded text to the through the messengers, who would then send to other respective targeted areas. Question. In your statement before the investigators, document ERN 0032 8024, English 0033 4044, and French 0041 1694, the same document, you indicated to the investigators that at B17 you met with Pol Pot and Nuon Chea. My question is, was B17 the place where Pol Pot and Nuon Chea worked and stayed? Response. B17 was an office, a place for tempering before people would be sent to work for Angkar. It was not the location where Pol Pot or Nuon Chea worked. Question. Do you know, or were you aware, what Pol Pot and Nuon Chea could have been doing when they came to B17? Response. They came to B17 because it was the place for production, and they came to inspect the production work to see its progress and development. And at the same time, they came to check the production movement And I believe that they went there as part of their relaxation or leisure time to just release their stress. Question: how did you know these individuals were Pol Pot and Nuon Chea? Response: people who lived and worked at B17, there were a lot of them, and there were other predecessors who worked in the premises who knew these individuals. I asked them who could have been the senior leaders because I never met and seen them. And I was told that this person was Bong Pol, this person or that person was Bong Nuon. That's how I learned their names. Question: apart from your knowledge about Pol Pot and Nuon Chea, did you ever see any other senior leaders who would be coming to B17 on any occasions? Response: no, I never known any other senior leaders, nor had I seen them going there. Question: I may go back a little bit in my question, a line of questioning. You said you attended the Telegrams training session, but how long did you attend the sessions? I believe that you have not answered that question when I put to you, so it is now time you may respond to that. And I also would like to ask you another question. After that training session, where did you work? Response: I attended the Telegram training sessions in 1973. I studied and learned on the job at the same time. And after acquiring these skills, I believe that by 1974, I could master the skill and was assigned, my group was assigned to work in another location at Prey Jake or B20. Question: at B20, what was your role? Response: at B20, I was the chairperson of the translation unit, the Telegram translation unit. Question: can you please tell the court as well who was the general manager of B20, or who was overall in charge of the place? Response: I'm afraid not. I don't know that person. Question: can you also please help clarify whether B20 was meant to serve the military or civilians? Response. B20 was a production place as well, a place where production could be performed and supplies could be used to support Angkar. It was also an office. I never went to other offices, and I stayed put in the banana plantation, and I did not go about elsewhere other than being confined to that very small location where I worked.
You said you were the chairman of the telegram translation unit. How many members were there under your supervision? Response. My team members included me, who was the group leader, and Wong was the deputy group leader, and Dab was also a member. I do not recall his name clearly, but he was a newcomer. There were only 3 of us, and Pon at that time was not within my section. Because the groups were divided into 2. I was at the rear, and Pon was sent to work at the front line with Pol Pot west of Phnom Penh. Question. Can you describe the structure of the telegram section with which you worked? Response. As for the working structure in the telegram sections, there were 3 units. They were interrelated. My section was responsible for telegram translation, and we actually did not have any other unit that supervised us, because we were a standalone section. Even the chairman of B20 did not have the authority of command on my section. We were autonomous in a sense. And there was another group which was called the telegram receiving and sending unit. And the other unit was the broadcasting unit, radio broadcasting unit. So these 3 units were separate units. And we never knew each other. That was the organization put in place by the Angkar, and we did not relate to one another. We had to do our own task. Question. Earlier on, you said that at B17 you met the leaders, namely Pol Pot and Nuon Chea. Now at B20, did you meet any leaders at B20? Response. At B20, I did not meet any leaders because all the telegrams which were translated were sent through messengers to the leaders. I did not know where the leaders resided at that time. My task was to translate the telegrams and ask for who those telegrams were meant for. I did not know, and I did not know where those telegrams were sent to either. Question. When you were at B20, did you know Punk, and who was Punk really? Response. I knew Punk. I had known him ever since I came to B17, because immediately when I arrived at B17, Pang was the person who designated me to B17, and he also indoctrinated me as well. So Pang was the person who even he supervised the overall task. He was the superior of them as well. Question. I would like to expand a little bit further on the telegram unit subordinate to B20. Was it the telegram unit of the center? In other words, is or was the telegram unit located within the B20 premise? Response. That I did not know, because my responsibility was limited to telegram translation. I did not even dare or bother to ask where the center office was. Question. So, are you saying that you did not know where the center office was? So, did you know back then where Pol Pot worked? And if you did, how far was his office from B20? Response. When I was working at B20, I did not know the whereabouts of center office. But when I was studying the telegram translation in the forest, and I learned from others that the center office was located deep in the jungle. But later on, in 1974, there was a division of my unit into two. One was attached to the front line, and the other was attached to the rear. But as for the exact location of the center office, I did not know. Question. Now if I move on to a more detailed work of receiving and sending out of telegrams. The incoming telegrams were the reports you receive, and sending out was the directive. Can you distinguish between these two, the typical incoming telegrams and the outgoing telegrams? The incoming and outgoing telegrams were as what you described. the incoming telegrams were in the form of reports we received from the base or from the front lines. They reported to the rear. That was the information or the development of the battlefields at the front lines. That was the information reported from the base to the upper authority. That was constituted reports. But as for the outgoing telegram was in the form of directives, which included measures, instructions, circulars for the implementation at the base. This was the directives from the upper authority for the lower authority to implement. Question. Thank you. I just want to expand a little bit further on the reports down from the base to the upper authorities. Were the report produced in handwriting, or did they typewritten them and send to you? And upon receiving those reports, you had to relay the reports to the upper authority. Is that a fair summary of the working procedure at your place? Response. Well, normally the reports were written with code numbers, with secret code numbers. Then I had to decode them. So normally there were numbers everywhere, code numbers, and they were secret code numbers on every page. They types through. They type them sometimes in the Khmer numbers, or sometimes they use signs which we had to decode. And sometimes the reports were produced using letters or shorthand writings. And normally the reports that were produced in letters, these involved the report from the front lines and battlefields. So, of course, the reports were in the form of secret code numbers or shorthands. They sent those reports through messengers to our unit. So we receive all sort of information through telegrams. Then we had to decode all of those reports and forward to the upper authorities through messengers. And if the reports were prepared in Khmer, I did not have to translate them. I simply relay them to the upper authorities. But if the reports were written using code numbers, I had to decode them and then prepared before sending it to the upper authorities through messengers. Question. Since this issue involves technical aspects of decoding telegrams, now I would like to know the instruction from the upper authority. Did the letters or instruction or directive, as the case may be, was handed down by the upper authority? Was it prepared in code numbers as well, or it was prepared in handwriting and you have to decode them into a code number before sending it through messenger to the target recipients? Response. Normally, the directives by the upper authority to be handed down to the lower level authorities, they had their secretaries. The secretary had to take notes of whatever instruction the leaders had. Then they prepare into letters as a telegram. It was written in a normal writing form. Then they sent through messenger to my telegram unit. Then we we encode the message so that it became secret code numbers. And that was not a final product. I had to try to maneuver it so that the entire message became code numbers, so nobody could read it except those who were the intended recipient, because it contained all code numbers, and I had to put it in the envelope and then send it out. And I had to send it also to the telegram typing unit in order to get them types before sending it out. Question. Can you enlighten the court further about the telegrams you receive from the front line or battlefields, as well as the directives from the upper authority to the lower level authority? Who was the courier of the telegrams or the report to the upper authority, and who were those telegrams sent to frequently among the leaders? Response. For reports, they addressed them to Angka. When I was working in the jungle, I did not know as to who the recipient of the telegram was, and I did not even know who represented Angka at that time. Once I completed decoding the telegrams, then I sent to Angka, but I did not know who Angka was at that time. I only sent those telegrams through messengers. But the person whom I often saw as the recipient with the signature, normally they mention Paul. They mentioned Paul, who was the person who was the undersigned of the telegrams, and it was my understanding that Paul was referred to as Pol Pot, and he was the frequent recipient of telegrams. Question. How about other reports which you did not see the names or the undersigns? Who else did those telegram go to?
បាទសារ
Response. The occasional reports or telegram were sent to Brother Noon, but it was on an occasional basis. It was not that frequent. Question. I have one more question. In connection with the report or telegram sending from the lower authority to the upper authority, you said that you had to encode or decode the message. Upon decoding or encoding of the message, who had the authority to order as to whom the telegram were to be sent to?
បាទខ្ញុំ
Response. When I was working at the telegram translation unit, I could divide it into two parts. When I was in the forest, actually I did not know much the working procedure. But following 1975, after the liberation of Phnom Penh, I moved to Phnom Penh. At that time, I came to know who had the authority to assign task to us. He actually the chairman of my unit by the name of Pon, who was the person with the authority to indicate as to who the telegram was to be addressed to.
កន្លែងនេះខ្ញុំសូម
Question. I would like to now discuss this point. When you receive the telegrams from the lower authority, did you see the names of the recipients of the telegram? For the incoming reports, I did not see as to who to be copied to, but on the salutation line, they said they mentioned two Brother Paul or two Office 870, but normally it was not mentioned anywhere that the telegram was copied to this individual or that individual, but the instruction as to who to copy these telegrams to were the sole discretion of Pon. Question. Now I would like to ask you about the directive from the upper authority down below the line. Do you recall the substance of the usual directives from the upper authority down to the lower level authority? Response. The directives took many forms depending on the nature of the reports. Particularly, it depended on the reports from the lower level requesting for decision from the upper authority. The upper authorities provided comments or instruction in accordance with the request by the lower authority. And as I said, there were different aspects in terms of directives from the upper authority. It involved politics, economy, culture, social affairs, as well as general relation and general condition and situation across the country, so that the lower level authority understood the overall situation as the circumstances evolved. That was the usual direction from the upper authority to the lower authority. Question. Mr. Pong, you said that there were directives concerning economies and culture. Can you tell the court who was in charge of giving opinions or direction concerning economy, for example, according to the telegrams you have received? The majority of telegrams concerning economy came from Committee of Office 870. Normally, the directive from Office 870 covers the overall situation of the country. It covers all the aspects across the country, not limited to economies and culture. But the leaders who was responsible for managing economy and culture were different. Of course, economies and culture were different things, so it was responsible by different people. As for economic affairs, the person who was responsible at that time was, if I recall correctly, the person was handling the materials to be distributed to the base level, and the person who was in charge at that time was Mr. Kyu Sampon. But as for cultural affairs, for example, if there was any moral issues among people in society, I believe it was Nguyen Chie who was the person in charge. So once again, there were different portfolios for different people at that time. As for Pol Pot, he was the person who oversaw every sector and every field. He had the right to say anything concerning anyone. You said the distributions of materials also was under the portfolio of Mr. Kyu Sampon. But how did you know that? How did you recognize that it was the responsibility of Mr. Kyu Sampon? Response. Mr. Kyu Sampon was not someone who was difficult to know, because Mr. Kyu Sampon was the head of state, and whenever there was an official visit by the head of state of other countries, then Mr. Kyu Sampon was the one who welcomed or had the audience for those foreign delegates. And normally, before he distributed those materials to the local levels, he sent the telegrams to my unit first, so that I could relay it to the local authority as to how many items or were to be distributed to any specific locality. So it had to go through my unit.
Question. I have a few more questions to put to you. I also would like to ask you whether you still remember whether there were telegrams or directives on the attack or capture of Phnom Penh. Response. I remember precisely about these telegrams because we had some reports, and it was obvious that in late 1977, early 1978, from then on, I had seen the messages sent in to us concerning the Vietnamese who brought in their troops closer to the border. That's why the border conflicts happened. And I also saw injured combatants who were transported to be treated in Phnom Penh because of the conflicts at the eastern part of the border. Question, Mr. Sopang, I thank you very much, but I would ask you some more questions about the period of 1977. But my next question will be about the event prior to 1975. Did you ever receive any telegrams concerning the meetings with regard to the attack of Phnom Penh? Response. I am sorry. Could you please ask the question again? Are you talking about the capture of Phnom Penh by the Vietnamese or by the Khmer Rouge? Co-prosecutor, I thank you, Mr. Nong Supan, very much. That's what we would like you to do. If you are not clear, please ask us. So, allow me to clarify. My question was about the event before 1975 when it was still under the rule of the Lon Nol regime. Before the capture of Phnom Penh by the Khmer Rouge, there could have been some messages or telegrams concerning how to attack and capture or evacuate the population of the city. I just would like to know whether you ever received such messages. Response. With regard to the arrangement to attack Phnom Penh, to liberate Phnom Penh from the Lon Nol soldiers, I had received and used to receive instructions concerning the arrangements of our troops to attack any particular targets. Indeed, there was a plan, and ammunition was also be at the ready, and the bases also requested for some ammunition and weaponry so that the attacks could be done effectively. I remember having recalled these events. However, with regard to the evacuation of the population from the city, I do not remember having seen any of those. The President, thank you, Mr. Co-Prosecutor, and thank you, Mr. Witness. The Chamber would like to adjourn for lunch. The next session will somehow be resumed by 2 p.m. today. And court officer is now instructed to assist Mr. Witness during the adjournment and have him return to the courtroom by 2 p.m. The Chamber wishes to also apprise the parties and the public of our notice that the reason the Chamber will resume by 2 p.m. because today Mr. Ieng Sari will be examined, and that the experts need some appropriate time for such examination. Counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea, you are your feet. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. I'm just on my feet very quickly. I was just informed that our client is suffering from a backache, a headache, and a general lack of concentration, and he would therefore like to spend the afternoon in the holding cell. And that is our application this morning. Thank you.
The President, the Chamber notes the request by Mr. Nuon Chea through his counsel, in which he has requested that he be excused from this courtroom for the remainder of the day due to his health concerns. The Chamber therefore grants such request, and Mr. Nuon Chea is allowed to observe the proceedings from the holding cell downstairs for the remainder of the day. Mr. Nuon Chea has expressly waived his right to directly participate in the courtroom. Counsel for Mr. Nuon Chea is now instructed to produce the waiver signed or given thumbprint by Mr. Nuon Chea immediately. The AV booth officers are now instructed to ensure that the audio-visual link is connected to the holding cell of Mr. Nuon Chea so that he can observe the proceedings from there. Security personnel are now instructed to bring Mr. Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan to their respective holding cell and have Mr. Khieu Samphan return to the courtroom when the next session resumes at 2 p.m. The court is adjourned.